Previously, I made a video with tips for every single crafting recipe in 1.5. Since then, almost half of the tips have been patched out. Turns out a lot of the tips were based on unintended mechanics. So here's another tip for every single craftable, this time including all of the 1.6 machines. As you probably know, over time fences will decay. Once they start to decay, they still work, but they won't give you back the fence if you break it. And eventually, they'll disappear completely. You can get ahead of this by breaking them and placing them back down, which will reset their decay timer without using any extra resources. And here's how long each type of fence lasts, courtesy of the wiki. As for the gates, no matter what, your horse will always be able to run through it, despite it only being a 1-block gap, which your horse normally can't fit in. Pathing does not actually prevent debris from spreading on the farm. It'll just get destroyed by it. What it does prevent, though, is grass and trees from spreading. Instead, you can use Grass Starter, which prevents all types of debris. Even better now with the old Slitherlegs book that allows you to walk through it faster. Also, Grass Starter can be placed pretty much anywhere, on the beach, in caves, and even in houses, making for an interesting decoration. You may have seen a lot of information about how bluegrass spreads slower than regular grass, making it worse in some situations. This has been fixed. They now spread at the same rate, making bluegrass always better. You can safely put chests wherever you want because they won't be destroyed, they'll just be pushed aside if a villager walks through it. You can place the new big chests right on top of an existing chest, and all of the items that were in the original chest will instantly be transferred. And as opposed to the big wooden chest, the stone chest still only uses stone, so it can be a bit easier to craft. If you really want, you can place a pressure nozzle on a sprinkler to essentially make it a quality sprinkler. I won't judge. While this is true for most machines, if you have a piece of pathing placed underneath a sprinkler, using the pickaxe will only pick up the sprinkler, and using the axe will pick up both the path and the sprinkler. And lastly, iridium sprinklers can be bought every Friday from Krobus. Moving on to lighting, torches can now be placed on top of sprinklers. And if you haven't found a glow ring yet, if you hold a torch above your head, it will produce light. If you want some free jack-o'-lanterns, you can steal the ones that are placed outside of people's homes during fall after the Stardew Valley Fair. You no longer need to buy the brazier recipes one by one from Robin. They can now all be bought on the same menu and out of order as well. The lampposts are the largest light source in the game, lighting up just about 7 tiles away from them. And campfires are the only light source that can be turned on and off whenever you want, including this one outside of Linus's tent. I'm sure you didn't need that. Don't just absent-mindedly turn all of your dinosaur eggs into mayonnaise, because if you have the treasure appraisal guide, which triples the sell price of artifacts, dinosaur eggs will now always sell for more on their own. Even if you have the artisan profession, silver quality or higher dinosaur eggs will still sell for more. Due to the really long 12-day growth time of fairy roses, plant some sunflower seeds on summer 20th to increase the price of your honey for the beginning of fall. Then swap it out with the fairy rose once it's done growing. Mushrooms can now be placed in preserves jars as of version 1.6, and purple mushrooms sell for more than most crops, so don't sleep on it. If you're planning on using cheese for food, you may be tempted to only use the normal quality cheese and sell the gold quality made from the large milk. But the multiplier in sell price for a gold quality item is 1.5 times. Meanwhile, the multiplier for energy and health gained is 1.8 times. So as long as you're getting the full amount healed, you might as well eat the gold item first. The loom is one of the only artisan machines that takes into account the quality of the input item when producing an output item. Depending on the quality of the wool, you'll have a higher chance of producing 2 cloth instead of 1, and the chance is equal to the price multiplier of the quality. Vinegar is no longer the only cooking item that can only be bought, not made. By placing rice into a keg, you can make vinegar. Even if you buy the rice straight from Pierre, you'll still make money since it makes 2 vinegar at once. There's actually 3 different ways to make oil in an oil maker: with corn, sunflowers, or sunflower seeds. The fastest time to process is with sunflowers, only taking 1 hour, but as for the most price efficient, it'll be corn. But you might as well use any extra sunflower seeds you get while harvesting sunflowers as well. As of version 1.6, wine can now be drank. When aged to higher qualities, the amount it heals is more than any other item in the game. At iridium quality, the amount healed is a 2.6 times multiplier. It is based on the sell price of the original fruit though, so the more expensive, the better. Smoked fish benefit from the price increase of both the angler profession and the artisan profession. That, on top of keeping the quality of the original fish, makes for some of the highest selling items in the game. It's pretty difficult just to tell by looking at the formula, but you should pretty much never put iridium quality crops into the dehydrator. Without the artisan profession, you'll always lose money, and with it, you'll make a couple dozen gold at best from the cheaper crops and still lose money with more expensive crops. Here are the general situations that each type of fertilizer are at their most useful. The fertilizers that raise the quality of your crops get much better as you level up in farming. As an example, basic fertilizer only gives you 3% more profit on average at level 0, but it's 13% more profitable at level 10. You can take advantage of this by using food that boosts your farming level when harvesting. At level 13 farming, deluxe fertilizer gives you 41% more profit on average. This is only useful if you don't plan on processing your crops though. If you are processing your crops, speed grow is the way to go, since you'll still benefit from faster harvests even if you're processing. Thing is, if you're using regrowable crops, speed grow doesn't affect the regrowth period. So, if you're in a situation where you're processing crops and you plan on leaving regrowable crops permanently, deluxe retaining soil is your go-to fertilizer for saving on space that would normally be taken up by sprinklers. It also comes with the advantage of being much cheaper to craft than other types of fertilizer. As for the awkward cousin tree fertilizer, you're getting less bang for your buck when you use it on mystic trees. For regular trees, the growth cycle is sped up by 5 times. For mahogany trees, it's 4 times, whereas for the mystic tree, it's only doubled. When planting forageable seeds, you don't have to worry about crows regardless of whether or not they're the first 15 crops in your farm. Since they're forageables, crows just don't go for them. If you for some reason have ancient fruit but haven't found the artifact ancient seed yet, you can deconstruct the plantable ancient seeds to get one. This also helps for completing the crafting recipe. For the community cleanup quest you need to obtain the fiber seeds recipe, there's a couple of areas in the game where you can almost always fish up trash. Floor 100 of the mines, the puddles in the Gourmand Frog Cave, and the pond in front of the spa. Even though tea saplings don't produce in winter, they will still grow, so you won't miss any harvests during the 20-day growth period if you choose to plant them then. Mystic trees can't grow moss, and while that means you just won't get any moss from them, if you're using them for mushroom log produce, it means you're going to have to plant a lot more trees to get higher quality mushrooms. Heading into the fishing section, as far as all of the tackles go, we're going to talk about how they work when doubled up with an advanced iridium rod, and if they work the same, we'll come up with another tip. Using 2 spinners duct taped together in an advanced iridium rod has the same effect as the dressed spinner, while at the same time being more cost efficient, with the difference in sell price of the materials to craft them being 230 gold. A single trap bobber makes the fishing bar decrease 33% slower, while 2 of them only decreases it by 50%. Not quite doubled. The sonar bobber is new, and it has no effect when doubled up, but guess what? It's profitable, selling for 70 gold more than the crafting materials, 20 gold more if you have the blacksmith profession. The cork bobber straight up gives double the effect when doubled up, meaning you now have 6 extra levels of bar size. If you're curious, when combining all other fishing bar size bonuses from things like cooked food or enchantments, you're able to achieve the fishing bar size of fishing level 25.5. Wild. The quality bobber will increase the quality of caught fish by 2 levels when doubled up, which sounds great, right? Well, if you're level 10 fishing and casting far enough in the water, you actually already have a 100% chance to catch at least a gold quality fish. So unless you're fishing somewhere that doesn't have max depth like the desert, the second quality bobber is completely useless. The effect of the treasure hunter bobber is doubled when doubled up, from a 5% extra chance to find chests to a 10% chance. Now you may wonder how that affects the chance to get the new golden treasure chests from Fishing Mastery. The way that works is any chest you find has around a 25% chance to be golden, and that fluctuates based on your daily luck. So with 2 treasure hunters, you have about an extra 2.5% chance to find them. Combining 2 dress spinners reduces the maximum fish bite time by a massive 15 seconds. Given you're already level 10 fishing, this means at most it'll take 12.5 seconds for a fish to bite. Then, by increasing your fishing level with foods and enchantments and using deluxe bait, you can get that time down to a max of 3.5 seconds. While you gain nothing from doubling up the barbed hook, it's been massively buffed due to all of the other buffs fishing has gotten. With the right build, the barbed hook can track some of the hardest fish in the game. Here it is, catching an octopus. I didn't touch a single button this entire time. Now moving on to the types of bait. While most places you can get maggots from require you to be level 9 fishing to craft or buy it, you can grab them from the casino at any time, even level 0. Bait is pretty basic, so here's something about fishing in general that you might have not known. Bait is used up even if you catch trash, and by fishing closer to the shore, you have a higher chance to fish trash up. As of 1.6, a few different types of bait can be used in crab pots for different effects. Wild bait lowers the chance of catching trash from 38% to 30%, unless you put the crab pot somewhere that always produces trash. In addition to the wild bait effect, deluxe bait increases the quality of fish to silver. While legendary fish can be caught outside of their season with magic bait, you still need to make sure you're casting into level 5 depth water, since magic bait has no effect on depth. If you have a mission that requires you to catch a certain amount of fish, catching 2 or 3 at once with challenge bait will count as 2 or 3 towards the quest. And yes, it does work on legendary fish. Despite the tipsy status technically having a negative effect of -1 speed, it's not considered a debuff, and so isn't affected by the sturdy ring. I decided to do a little myth busting for the warrior ring. I wore it while only letting my trinket, which is the magic quiver in this case, attack. Not only is the quiver able to activate the warrior ring buff, but it also benefits from it, gaining 30 extra damage on each shot, which is huge. You can activate the Yoba's Blessing buff by bombing yourself. Could be useful since you can hit yourself with 1 damage. As of the very newest version of the game, 1.6.9, Thorn's rings stack, dealing double the damage back as they normally would. Stacking multiple glowstone and glow rings together doesn't increase the radius that you light up, it just makes the existing radius even brighter. There's a new enemy in the game called the Iridium Golem. It only appears if you have monsters activated on your farm and you've hit level 9 combat. They have a 1 in 1,000 chance to drop the Iridium Band. Sounds rare, but remember that you can double that with the Burglar's Ring, and increase that a little more with the Monster's Compendium. When marrying another player, you get the star drop that you'd normally get from reaching around 13 hearts with your spouse immediately. Also, it's not required to be crafted to reach perfection, even when playing multiplayer. And last time I mentioned that you shouldn't just make as many field snacks as you can, since you never know when you'll need the tree seeds. This is now doubly true since Mystic Tree Seeds require 5 of every regular tree seed, so once again, only make them as you need them. All bugs are not meated equally. Cave flies have a 90% drop rate of bug meat, while grubs only have a 60% chance, so let them transform if you want more of that good. Well, they fixed the tooltip, but man. Here's a tip: 2 gold cheeses heals just as much and fully restores energy at the same time. There's no infested floors in the dangerous versions of the mines and Skull Cavern, so drinking the oil of garlic actually has no effect. This also applies to the Quarry Cavern and the Volcano. There's a new way to grind out tons of monsters in a short amount of time. Monster Musk up, then head to the Skull Cavern during the Desert Festival. That's where you'll find these statues that give you a random effect when activated, including increasing the spawns of certain types of monsters. It's pretty tough, but you'll knock out those Slayer goals in no time. There are 2 new ways to get fairy dust. You can either trade a Book of Stars for 8 of them at the bookseller, or you can trade a Mystic Syrup for 1 at the Raccoon Shop. This lowers the effective price to obtain them, meaning that they can actually be used on some machines for profit now. If we're comparing the price of crafting Farm Warp Totems to the Return Scepter, you would need to use the Return Scepter 14,815 times for the purchase price to be worth it. As for the other warps, you can get extra Mountain Warp Totems from freshwater crab pots and extra Beach Warp Totems from ocean crab pots. The crafting recipe for the Desert Warp Totem is actually more expensive than the 500 gold for the bus ride, so you are paying for the convenience. On the other hand, the Island Warp Totem is much cheaper than the price to travel to the island, the trade-off this time being the rarity of the Dragon Tooth. Rain Totems can be used on Ginger Island, which can be useful for completing both the Mermaid Puzzle and the Bird Puzzle. And for the last totem, the most difficult part of using a treasure totem is finding a spot where all of the summoned dig spots won't be blocked. Here's a spot for every area that has unique dig spot drop rates where all dig spots will spawn. In the case where an area is too small to let all of them spawn, I'll do it in the spot that makes the most of them spawn. Here's a couple of extra ways you can get coal so you don't have to use up your entire supply of wood at the charcoal kiln. You can get 1 to 3 from driftwood in a recycling machine. There's newly added coal nodes at the quarry and volcano, but you can just never beat popping a monster musk and slaying an entire generation of dust sprites. which you should be doing anyway so that you can get the burglar's ring. Crystallariums can produce about 3 quartz a day, and 5 quartz can be traded to the desert trader in exchange for bombs. If you want to unlock furnaces as early as possible, you can just buy a piece of copper, drop it, and pick it back up. This way you don't need to wait for the mines to open. One of the perks of the heavy furnace is that you randomly get the chance to make 6 bars instead of 5. When refining fire quartz, that chance to get an extra item activates individually for each piece of quartz, so you can get anywhere from 15 to 20 refined quartz. Lightning rods don't need to be placed near crops to protect them from lightning strikes. No matter where they are on the farm, they always have a chance to divert the strike. Solar panels are best used in the desert where it's always sunny. This is new with version 1.6, as before then, if it was rainy in Pelican Town, it was also considered raining in the desert. There's a couple of more uses for some of the trash items in 1.6. Broken glasses are now a liked item for Evelyn, and they can be traded for the jungle tank at the raccoon shop, so don't just absent-mindedly put them in recycling machines. You can get forageable seeds from a seed maker, but not from any old forageable. Wild horseradish is the only one that works for spring, spice berries for summer, common mushrooms for fall, and winter roots for winter. You can hatch slimes wherever you want, not just in the slime hutch. Weirdly enough, if you spawn them in town, they will talk to the other villagers, and in your own house, your spouse will scream before killing it. Hatching your ostrich eggs as opposed to making them into mayonnaise is actually really profitable. Even at the lowest amount of friendship, an ostrich sells for over 5,000 gold. This is only beaten by mayonnaise if you have the artisan profession and an iridium quality egg. You can now trade 2 monster compendiums for a slime egg press at the bookseller. Nice, since the crafting recipe is rather expensive. Worm bin buff. Now that the worm bin consistently produces 4 to 5 bait every day, you can place it next to 4 crab pots to provide the bait for them. This also applies to the deluxe worm bin with the bonus of giving silver quality fish like I mentioned before. It doesn't matter what type of bone you put in a bone mill, it always results in the same set of items. That being said, the cheapest bone that can be used is the trilobite at 50 gold. The second cheapest, luckily, are bone fragments coming in at 60 gold, and their sell price isn't affected by the treasure appraisal book, unlike most other bones. The geode crusher no longer requires coal, properly making it better than Clint. When considering the crafting price, it'll take cracking open 54 geodes before you save money from not going to Clint's. When determining the quality of the mushrooms, mushroom logs count how many trees are around and double that count if they have moss. If it counts to 40, the mushroom is guaranteed to be iridium. And while that may seem impossible to do since trees need to be at least 2 spaces apart, it'll also count partly grown trees, allowing you to use every single space. Putting targeted bait of a crab pot fish into a crab pot does actually work. On the other hand, yes, you can turn the legendary fish into bait. No, it won't catch you more legendary fish. This only works for the legendary fish replacements from the key quest. While the regular green rain trees can't be tapped, these type of green rain trees can, and they will produce fiddlehead ferns every other day. For 2 out of the 4 seasons, heavy tappers will have no unique effect on mushroom trees. Since in fall, mushroom trees already produce every day, and heavy tappers can't go faster than once a day. And in winter, they don't produce at all. This is also true for the mahogany tree, which also produces every day, just sap. By choosing the pull in opposite direction option for firing the slingshot, you can shoot much quicker than with the other option, with the trade-off of it being a little harder to aim. After reading the Dwarvish safety manual, you'll only take 1 damage from cherry bombs, which is completely negligible. When bombing dirt, you won't get any drops like clay or artifacts unless you're in the mines or the skull cavern, the only exceptions being golden walnuts and secret note spots. And for a while, it's been a misconception that the explosion radius of the mega bomb wasn't a perfect circle. If we use machines, we can see that it is in fact a circle. The tub of flowers is unique because it changes its look depending on the season, but as of version 1.6, they'll always bloom when placed indoors. You can use the Wicked statue as a sort of alarm for when monsters start spawning on your farm. It'll shake and its eyes will glow red. You can solve the mermaid puzzle with only a single flute block. Just pick it up each time you make the correct note. Here is a drum set, and here's how many times you click on the drum block to imitate each drum or symbol. You can immortalize some of the items that you can't keep forever, like the prismatic slime or ectoplasm, on your signs. You can steal that text sign that Pam places in front of the bus when she isn't available to drive it. Although it's never really stated, the inside of your house and sheds count as every season, so you're able to grow any crop whenever you want, barring ancient fruit of course. If you need a visual on how much space the scarecrow covers, it's the same amount of space that the mega bomb blows up. To get the deluxe scarecrow recipe, you only need to have obtained each of the rare crows. You can throw them away right as you get them. You can place a staircase in Lewis's house to enter a secret basement where you can find an extra pair of purple shorts. If you're looking for bombs, transmuting 3 copper bars into 1 iron bar essentially trades 3 cherry bombs for 5 explosive ammo, which I would argue is an upgrade. Gold bars are now a loved item for 3 different characters, Clint, Maru, and Willy, whereas iron bars are only liked by Clint and Maru and are disliked by Willy. Despite the regular jukebox working at the saloon, the mini jukebox doesn't. Good stuff. Mini obelisks are the only machine that will work on the regular farm, but not the Ginger Island farm. With the upgrade farm computers gotten the 1.6 update, they can now find how many forageables are on the ground in any given area. Hoppers, similar to chests, won't be destroyed when a villager walks through them. The tip for the cookout kit is, it's good now. Available at level 3 forging instead of 9, it's really useful for getting some early money from sashimi. Don't have a desert warp totem yet? Start your day right outside of the Skull Cavern with a tent kit. Need a quick energy refill while working through the mines? Pop it down. In general, if you're frustrated by having to walk back to the house and sleep, this is your way of doing any activity for as long as you want with no interruptions. The immune to bomb damage buff that you can get from the statue of the Dwarf King includes the exploding monsters from the volcano. The extra ore when mining nodes includes cinder shards, bone fragments, and clay, but the greater chance to find coal does not affect monster drops. From the Statue of Blessings, the Blessing of Waters, which makes your first 3 fish of the day easier, doesn't get wasted on trash objects. So by fishing at the volcano, you can guarantee that the buff is used on lava eels. This works really well when comboed with challenge bait. Unlike most things in the game, what your anvil gives you when re-rolling a trinket is determined the moment you re-roll, not when you start the day. This means if you don't get the stats you want, you can restart the day and try again for something different. And lastly, for the mini forge, as the tooltip says, it can be used in your home, but it can also be used while you're going through the mines or the Skull Cavern. It doesn't seem to have any limitation on when and where it can be placed. And that will do it. A tip for every single craftable that won't be patched out by the time you're watching this, unless we get a 1.7. I want to thank Blade, who tested pretty much all of the tips in 1.6 and maybe debunked 1 or 2 of them. That's pretty much what inspired me to update this idea for 1.6. Thank you for watching, see you in the next one, and good night.